So we'll talk a little bit about the different organizations that uh, have the rules for college. We'll talk a little bit about NCAA. We'll talk about the NJCAA. We'll talk about the NAIA. And there's a couple of others that I'll mention, but we won't go into too many details. Um, so as an overview, so for college divisions, we have the NCAA. There is Division One, Division Two, Division Three. There is the NAIA. There is the NJCAA, which is junior colleges. There's the California Junior College Athletic Association. They operate separately from the rest of the junior college world because they are free. And then also you have the NCCAA, which is the National Christian Collegiate Athletic Association. We'll talk a little bit about recruiting process. The object for this conversation for the College Advisory Program for Sporting Nebraska is a focus of best fit. So we're hopefully going to have you think about what things you are looking for during your time in college, as far as not just athletically, but academically, type of school, location, things of that nature, to hopefully, so when you pick where you go, number one, you're making a good choice for you, and you are able to complete your college career at that institution. Talk a little bit about NCAA Eligibility Center, and we'll also talk about the NAIA Eligibility Center. So for the NCAA for women, these numbers can fluctuate a little bit from year to year, but we're looking at 333 soccer schools for Division One, 265 soccer schools for Division Two, and 441 for Division Three. So what are some of the differences between the divisions? Typically, we're talking about the maximum allotted maximum scholarship and average roster size. So Division One, you can get athletic scholarships for soccer. There was some recent changes with Division One just in the last few months. The 28 scholarships are available for Division One soccer. However, the rosters are all now capped at 28 players. Division Two, max scholarship is 9.9, average roster is 27. Division Three, there is no athletic scholarships. Typically, they're going to be offering bigger academic scholarships for players that attend those institutions. I'm not going to read through these name by name, but you can take a look at the list of local schools that are Division One or in states around us. Same thing with Division Two and Division Three. One thing I will touch on here about the max scholarship number, these numbers are only available at fully funded schools. So, for example, Southwest Minnesota State is not a fully funded D2, so they only carry about 6 scholarships. Most D2s will split those scholarships up between multiple players to give folks some money to fill out their rosters, because as you know, it takes 11 to play soccer, and 9.9 will not field you a full team. NAIA, the National Association of Intercollegiate Athletics. There's approximately 180 soccer schools in that division. They offer 12. They are allowed to offer a maximum of 12 athletic scholarships. The average roster size across schools is 25. Typically, the local NAIAs, like for example, the GPAC conference. So that's going to be, your Bellevue, Briar Cliff, College of St. Mary, where I coach at, Dort, Hastings. Those schools all carry more in the neighborhood of 35 to 40 players, as they offer JV or reserve programs is what they call them. And whether you're on the first team or JV, because of the way most of these schools do their scholarships, there is an opportunity to get money at both of those levels. Now to touch on the junior college landscape, there's actually 3 divisions for junior college. The difference between the divisions is what they can offer as far as scholarships. Division One junior colleges can offer up to 18 scholarships. The scholarship can cover all costs of attendance, so that's including housing, food, and classes, so your tuition. Division 2 can only cover tuition, not room and board. And Division 3 offers no athletic scholarships there. Some of those local schools around here, like Iowa Western and Council Bluffs, Indian Hills in Iowa, Central is in Nebraska, Southeast Community College in Beatrice. Those are some of the schools that are in our area. So, just to give you kind of a picture of the percentages of kids that go on to play college. Now, I'm going to preface this by don't be scared with the numbers, as there is a lot of kids who don't want to play beyond high school. But if we're looking at these numbers are from 2022. So in 2022, there was 394,000 female soccer players that were playing in high school. There was 28,310 NCAA players. So if you kind of compare those numbers of high school going to college, it's about 7% of players who play soccer in high school go on to play at the next level. If you add in the NAI and JUCO numbers, it's closer to about 9%. So if you want to look at this simply, 1 out of about every 10 high school players is able to find a roster spot in college. Now this number's kind of changed a little bit because of what D1 did. But if you look at the numbers, does anybody have an idea of what the percentage of players get a full ride to college? Does anybody have an idea of what that number would be? No guesses. All right, no guesses. Well, I'll give you the answer. The actual answer is less than 1.5%. So if you think that playing a sport, especially soccer, will pay for the entirety of your college, that is not the case, right? I'll get on my soapbox about grades here in a little bit when we talk about eligibility and how to be eligible to play college soccer. But the fact of the matter is less than 1.5% of players actually get a full athletic scholarship to cover tuition for college. So now we'll talk a little bit about the recruiting process. So there's kind of 4 steps to getting started here. Number 1, you need an honest assessment of your ability or where you might potentially fit. So where you're going to get this is you're going to gather evaluations from your club, high school, and any college ID camps you attend. The idea is to get a feel for what several coaches feel is a level that's a good fit for your skill set. And I want you to keep in mind when you think about getting these evaluations is not all D2 colleges are created the same. Not all NAIA colleges are created the same. Some NAIs are better than D2s. Some D2s can beat low-level D1s, right? So it's also knowing about the conference, the schools you're looking at play in, and what will be a fit for your skill set. Step 2 is going to be to identify appropriate colleges. Do your research. So when we talk about finding the right fit, we want to talk about, does that school have your majors of choice? Does the cost fit what your and your family's budget is? Some of these smaller private schools can get really pricey. State colleges are generally less expensive. JUCO's even less expensive than that. Location. How far away do you want to be from mom and dad and your friends and family, right? Do you want to be able to get home on the weekend to maybe beg mom or dad to do your laundry and feed you? Or do you want to be far enough away they just can't pop into your dorm room randomly? Also, look at the roster of the school you're at. If you play right back and they have 6 right backs on the roster, is that probably a good spot you want to go to? Maybe not. Maybe you want to go for a spot where you have a better opportunity of getting on the field as a freshman or sophomore as opposed to waiting for junior or senior year. Step 3, communication and getting noticed. First part of that is having an online presence. There's 4 very large online recruiting services: NCSA, Captain U, Sports Recruits, just to name a couple of those. Attend ID camps and showcase events. Direct communication. Once you've narrowed down your majors to probably your top 3, we'll talk a little bit about how to target schools and how to communicate with those schools. But when we talk about direct communication, I'm talking about phone calls, emails, and text messages to coaches. And lastly, on the communication and getting noticed piece, own your own recruitment process. What I mean by that is, don't expect anybody else to try to find you a spot to play except for you. What I mean is, don't expect your high school coach, your club coach, to go out there and do the work for you to get you a spot. You need to own the process. You need to be sending emails. You need to be responding to emails and text messages, asking, hey, is this a good camp for me? Can we go to this showcase event? Those type of things. Take ownership of the process. And step 4 is gain and keep eligibility. Grades are extremely, extremely important. I will tell you it's extremely competitive on the grade side. Obviously, there's plenty of talented soccer players out there, but just ask yourself this question: is a college coach going to take me if I have a 2.0 and there's someone with the same skill set that has a 3.5? I'll tell you right now, they're going to take the kid with a higher GPA because they're less to worry about once they get to school and they don't have the support structure of home, mom and dad, and that sort of thing, and are taking care of business right now. Take both the ACT and SAT. Different schools have different entrance requirements and look at different tests. And lastly, be registered with the NCAA and the NAIA eligibility centers. So, in my 9 years of doing this and conferences and talking with other coaches, I've identified 4 major points of failure of why kids do not get recruited or do not find the place that they want to end up. Number 1, the player did not engage in the process proactively and consistently. Basically, maybe you sent a couple of emails here or there, didn't check your email enough when you had some coaches reaching out to you, not very responsive to text messages, that sort of thing. The right college or coach did not see them. So this could be a couple of things. Didn't go to enough showcase events, number 1. Number 2, don't have an online recruiting profile or are not proactive about getting your highlight films out there to different coaches. Number 3, they did not assess their academic and athletic ability appropriately and honestly. For example, only looking at D1 schools. And I've seen this both ways. Some players only think they're good enough for D1 when they're not, or they don't think they're good enough and maybe aren't looking at D2 because they only think they're good enough for D3 or NAIA. So both with overconfidence and lack of confidence. And then number 4, stopping communicating with other colleges upon first offer, right? You can accept multiple offers from multiple schools and compare them and look at what is the best decision for you. The reason I say this is oftentimes there's going to be verbal conversations where you might get an offer, but until you've had it in writing and have a signed letter of intent for NCAA, or with NAIA, it's a little bit different letter, but it's an intent to attend. Those offers can be given to other players. So if you accepted a verbal offer from one school and stopped the process and then come to find out coaching change or any number of things could happen and they pull that offer because it wasn't in writing, then you're still looking for a college home to be playing soccer. Before I get into the timeline, was there any questions about keys to success or points of failure. All right, moving on. So, we're gonna go through freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. So for freshmen, ninth grade, as a high school student, you are considered, for the rules, intents, and purposes, a prospective student athlete. So if you see PSA on websites, or if I talk about PSA, that means prospective student athlete. This is the time that we want to start creating our academic and athletic resume / player profile. These are going to be the things that we use at showcase events. We'll use it to update our online presence with our recruiting profiles or social accounts, things of that nature. This is the time we want to start researching colleges. A good number to start with is 25. So we want to start with a list of schools of 25. If we don't know what our major is determined, we want to try to get our majors that we're interested in or looking at down to approximately 8 or 10, so we can make sure our target list of 25 schools all contain those majors. And this is the time we want to start collecting video of games or training sessions. We want to start attending college ID or showcase events for different schools or tournaments. For NCAA D1 and D2, you can reach out to coaches, but they cannot respond to you. Even though they cannot respond, this is the time that we want to start getting our name out there to coaches and let the schools that we're interested in know about us. That way they can start sending you general information about the school, and then you can get on the radar of their admissions team. NCAA D3, NAIA, and NJCAA, communication from coaches can begin. So again, D1, D2, coaches can't reach out to you as a freshman. D3, NAIA, and junior college can reach out to players that are freshmen. I will say they generally do not, because their cycle's a little later, but they can reach out to you at this time. As a sophomore, we want to start narrowing down that list of target schools. So we want to go from that 25 to get into the 10 to 15 range. And we want to get those majors we're interested in down to about 4 or 6. This is when we want to make sure we're hitting our emails and phone calls to our target schools hard. September 1st, NCAA D1 and D2, you want to register with the Eligibility Center. That is the first time you can do it. Even if you don't think your D1 or D2 possibility as a sophomore, you still have 3, in September of your sophomore year, you still have 3 years of growth ahead of you. So if you have any interest in playing college soccer at all, you want to register with the Eligibility Center. NCAA D3, after the last day of school, off-campus communication is allowed. So when I talk about coaches being able to respond to you electronically your freshman year, as a sophomore, if they see you at a showcase event, they can come up and talk to you as a D3. Again, D1 and D2, when you're a sophomore, you can contact them, but they cannot respond. As a junior, this is when stuff starts to open up. So after June 15th, so this would be going in, so you're a rising junior, so June 15th, NCAA D1 and D2 coaches can call you and extend verbal offers. You cannot sign yet, but they can start offering and talking to you as of June 15th. June 15th for NCAA D2, official visits can commence. August 1st is the date D1 and D2 official visits can commence and off-campus contacts. January 1, during your junior year, you can take official visits to a D3. This, as a junior, is when you can register with the NAIA Eligibility Center. That's when we want to get that done. This is also the year that we want to narrow our list of target schools to 3 to 5 and get our major down to our top 3. Now, the NCAA limit for visits is 5. Generally, you are only going to take an official visit because they're paying for you to be there. That's what makes it official. If you are far along in the recruiting process. You've had a conversation with the head coach. They know they're interested in you, and this is kind of the final step before you sign on the dotted line for your LOI. You can visit up to 5 schools for the NAI or for NCAA. My suggestion is you take all 5 visits possible and take as many unofficial visits as possible. The reason I say that is you don't really know the school until you've physically been on campus, looked at the buildings, met with professors, met with the coaching staff, had the opportunity to actually speak with players on the team. The visit time, official or unofficial, is really the time you get to know the school. You can take as many unofficial visits as you want. So I suggest taking as many as you have on your target school list. So if your target school list is still at 5 as a junior, take 1 official visit, and then if they give you an official, take that one as well. Seniors, now it's time to make the final choice for school. Make sure the school you're looking at has your top 2 majors of choice. It's a lot easier to change majors at the same school than it is to jump from school to school. So, November 1st of your senior year, junior college, you can sign your letter of intent for JUCO. November 9th for NCAA D1 and D2, you can sign your national letter of intent. At the end of your senior year, for D1 and D2, that's when you got to enter your final transcripts and complete your amateurism questionnaire in the Eligibility Center. That's an added piece if you end up signing D1 and D2. Now, the one thing I do want to say about these dates is they do adjust slightly from year to year, but they're always going to be, for JUCO, it's November 1st, but for D1 and D2, it's always going to be somewhere a time that second week in November you can sign those letters of intent. Any questions about the calendar or any of those dates I talked about for the schools? Okay, now I'm going to talk a little bit about academic eligibility. This is I'll get on my grades soapbox. For junior college, you just have to be a high school graduate. There's no minimum GPA requirement. They take all comers. For NAIA, you have to be a high school graduate and meet 2 of the following conditions under this list. So you got to graduate high school, get an ACT of 18 or an SAT of at least 860, have a GPA of 2.0 or higher, or have a class rank in the top half of your graduating class. So you can graduate high school, get the test score, and be in the top half of your class, and you're good to go. For D1, you have to be a high school graduate. You have to carry at least You have to have at least a 2.3 GPA in core courses. Core courses are essentially like math, English, so they're the basics. They're not those like added classes like weightlifting or driver's ed. Those grades won't count. You have to have a 2.3 in the core courses. There is a list of approved courses on the NCAA website. There's also a link in the slide deck. Of your 16 core courses, you have to have 10 of those completed before your senior year. Generally, that's going to be no problem. For those of you who attend LPS, LPS does a really good job of identifying what students are potentially going to play college athletics. So your counselors at school will also help you with this process to make sure you have the correct classes completed prior to your senior year. You will want to make sure when you take the SAT and ACT, you enter the school code of 9999. That will send the test scores directly to the NCAA to add to your eligibility center. There is a sliding scale for test score requirement based on your core course GPA. So, for example, if you have a 3.0 GPA, you only need to attain an SAT of 720 or the ACT summative score of 52. So the lower your GPA, the higher test scores you need. The higher your GPA, the lower test score requirement is needed. For D2, high school graduate, have to have at least a 2.2 in the core courses, 16 core courses completed total. Again, test scores sent directly to the NCAA. And it's a similar sliding scale, but it's not as intense as D1. So again, some tips on the process. Own the process yourself. You are the one who's going to make this happen. Do not hesitate to call, email, text message coaches. If you are not, another player is going to be doing that. The players who make noise will get noticed, will get reviewed, and will find teams to play on. Be proactive. I can tell you this. I have talked to one parent in 9 years of recruiting for college. Most college coaches will not talk to your parents. You have to own this because once you get to college, you're going to be an adult at a certain point and they're going to deal with you. Most college coaches don't talk to your club or high school coaches during the initial recruiting. If you reach a certain point and the coach is now trying to they've determined, this coach says, hey, I think they're a good player, they got a good GPA, we have their major, now I'm trying to find out a little bit about your character. That's when they're going to start reaching out to your club coach or your high school coach to see what type of person you are. So also, you might want to ask your high school coach and your club coach, hey, if a college coach calls you, what are you going to say about me? That way there's no surprises. Do your own research. What is the roster makeup? What has their record been over the last 5 years? How long has the coaching staff been there? What non-soccer related activities can you do on campus? This one is an important one for campus life, right? College is good for a lot of things just beyond academics and athletics. It helps you grow as a person, figure out who you are and who you're going to be, and some of those activities that you do outside of the classroom and soccer will help move that along. Use the research you do for the school to generate questions of the coaches. Have questions written down before you talk to them. If you ask questions about the school to the coach, they know you're actually interested. If a college coach says, hey, what questions do you have about my school? And you go, nothing. You don't seem that interested in your school. How much time and energy are they going to spend on trying to get you to go there? Know your story. Do your goals, values, history, and match with the school or program? Be ready to share your story with the coaches and players at the school. Coaches do want to know you, believe it or not. They want to know what type of person that they're tying themselves to for the next 4 years. To give you a little anecdote, our number one rule for recruiting at College of St. Mary is no jerks. So we want to make sure that you're a good person. You're not going to create any issues in the locker room. You're going to help make the environment at campus better. Talk to current players on the team. They are going to be your family on campus. What do the current players say about the team or program? What are they not saying? You're going to spend about 40 hours per week with them for about 4 years. So you really want to make sure you have a good feel for what the locker room is like, what the team members are like, what the coaches are like. Get their perspective on the environment at the school. Again, get to know the coaches. Are you comfortable spending 4 years being coached by them? Grades, grades, grades. The easiest way to separate on-field talent is by GPA. For those of you who have a 4.0 or better, awesome, not an issue. If you're hovering around that 285 to 325, buckle down and focus on making sure you're getting all your homework done, you're studying for tests to get your maximum grades so you get that GPA as close to 4 as you possibly can before you graduate. Easiest way to get recruited for any division is to have a high GPA. That's the first way you can stick out. Ask yourself the big questions. Why do you play the game? Do you enjoy it enough to do the hard stuff and the not fun stuff to continue playing in college? Who do you play for? What do you want your college experience to look like? When I talk about there's a lot of players that play club for 10 years and play high school and then just don't want to play soccer anymore. Maybe they just want to go to school and rush, or they just want to enjoy college and go to class and make friends and get their degree and move on to the next phase of their life. That is awesome. That's great. I don't fault them for that. you need to be honest with yourself so you know, hey, I'm going to commit 4 years of and every fall and some of the spring to my college soccer career. I have that commitment to myself, and I can commit to do that for 4 years. Use the internet. The internet is an extremely helpful tool for helping you get recruited. Use it to locate residential ID camps, showcases, and non-residential ID camps for the different colleges. My one caveat for ID camps is look at the pricing. If it's a 4-hour camp for $400, that school is using it as a fundraiser not to identify players. If you look at an ID camp and it's maybe $400 or $500 over 4 days and it's like $100 a day, okay, they're probably using that to identify players. But if it's not a lot of time and it's very expensive, they're probably not using it to actually identify players. They're using it to raise money for the program. Get recruiting software. Get highlighted NCSA, Field Level, College Fit Finder, Total Global Sports, Sports Recruits. Those are all different softwares you can use to build an online profile for your college recruiting. Build your roster of promoters. When I told you to check in with your coach and club coach about what they would say about you if a college coach called them, those are the people who are going to speak well of you. So make sure that you work on cultivating the relationship with your club coach, your high school coach, your high school counselors, and your teachers. Some of the bigger programs that if you end up, getting looked at by D1s and D2s, they will do their research on you, especially now that the rosters are capped at 28. They're not going to bring in somebody that's an issue. They're going to do their homework and figure out what type of person you are. So hopefully 4 things to help you decide on what college could be right for you. Academic. What is the quality of institution for your major? Is the college ranked? So what I mean by that is, for example, my College of St. Mary, if I see kids that are interested in kinesiology, I'm going to say, hey, we're actually the 11th ranked program in the country academically for kinesiology. So that's a really good major fit for College of St. Mary. So, for example, UNL has a very good business school. UNL's got and a pre-law program, both very good at UNL. Doane, for example, and Wesleyan have very good teaching programs. So if you're looking at going into education, those are both ranked very well. That's what I mean by looking at the school's ranking for what the academics is for your major of choice. For your second major of choice, is the college still a fit? What is the employment status of graduates? So if someone goes to that college and they get that diploma, how many of them get a job within a year after graduating college with that major? Geographically, again, how far are you comfortable being away from home? Do you want to be far away? Do you want to be close? What's the family support you need? Does the size of the town matter to you? For example, if you go to Wayne State and live in Wayne, Nebraska, there's not a lot to do in town. If you want to go to the movies, you're probably driving an hour to go to Norfolk. Are you cool with playing in cold weather? Obviously, if you go to, like, say, Minnesota Wesleyan, it gets pretty cold there in the winter. Are you okay with that? Social. What is the learning community like? What are the extracurricular activities? What is the game day experience like? What is the overall college experience you want? For example, maybe you played volleyball or softball in addition to your soccer, and you'd like to go to a school that has those programs, so you can go to a volleyball game or go to a softball game and watch those on campus. Money. What is the total cost of attendance? What is the budget that you and your family can afford? So the budget piece is going to be very important because obviously, for example, Creighton is north of $40,000 a year. If you're only going to get $7,500 in student loans, $2,500 for a soccer scholarship, and you get maybe another $10,000 for academic, do you have the other $25,000 to cover that cost of attendance? And this is the Sporting Nebraska recruit map. So the blue dots are areas where Sporting Nebraska players have ended up at college, and you see that's pretty good coverage map. Some in Colorado, a lot in the Midwest, Texas, but that's just to give you an idea of where hopefully soccer could take you if you put in the effort. That is all I have for this initial one on the college recruiting stuff. Feel free to come off mute or drop your questions in the chat. If there's any questions that you had on stuff I talked about or something you want to know about it more about I touched on or I didn't touch on, let's hear what you got. Parents, you too. This will make history. This will be the first time I've done this meeting and not had a single question. No questions or dumb questions. Yes, Kinsley.
How do we get those, like the film from like our high school coaches or club coaches?
So LPS has huddle accounts. So your high school coach should have invited you to the huddle account. And then for our club account, we'll record with Vio. And I don't know if I've invited the high school group to Vio yet. But I'll put the invite link in the email I send out with the recording.
Okay. Thank you.
And I know you got an invite for huddle.
Yeah.
And if you guys are interested, I will do kind of a short one of these and talk through what highlight films look good and what are bad. So some do's and don'ts for when you make those highlight videos. Well, if that's the only question I have, I'm gonna stop the recording and then I'm gonna hang on.